welcome to WRPB and WRPB Studios. You know, living in Florida for me, even though I'm here like over 30 years, has been such a change. And what happens is we go through a season called hurricane season, and you don't, you always hear the word palm farms, and you hear the word you got to take care of your trees and what's left over. And it became a nightmare for me. And as you guys know, I always say, use a professional. If you don't, it'll cost you 5 times more in money and 10 times more in frustration. With me is Evan Buckman, and you are CEO of America's Top Notch Tree Service.
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
Good. Thank God it's on your shirt. Other than that, I never remember. I'm too old to remember this stuff.
Of course.
Okay, so first of all, how long have you been doing this?
So I've been in the industry for about 15 years now. I started when
Oh,
I was 11 years old, had an electric push mower and electric weed whacker. Built my company up to 61 accounts and 4 employees by the age of 15.
wow.
At that point, I realized I needed to learn a little more in depth of things, and so I worked for a certified arborist out in Sebastian for over 5 years. Learned everything I know from him. Gentleman named Eric Rue with Sunshine Tree Service. From that point on, I kind of figured it was time to take my, learning experience to the next level and start my own company and, get back into it. So I've been in business for about 2 years myself as America's Top Notch and, growing and thriving every day.
You know, you said something that's really interesting because people don't understand. So you gave a shameless plug to Eric
Yes, sir.
and Sunshine.
Yes, sir. Eric Rue with Sunshine Tree Service out in Sebastian.
Most people don't understand how that makes you look. And we coined the phrase co-opetition, meaning there's enough for everybody.
Of course.
And if someone's a good person, then you work with them.
Most
If someone's
definitely.
not a good person, you don't work against them. You just don't even put them in your plate. You couldn't care less.
Of course.
And that's how I look at it. So that's quite impressive that you would do something like that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the gentleman, took me under his wing and taught me everything he knows and, dedicated the time into me, something that not a whole lot of people do in this day and age,
Right.
So,
It's all about me. That's how it's
of
become.
course. And, for somebody to do that for somebody else and have that careless act to be able to invest into somebody else's future definitely takes it to another level for sure. So.
Okay, so go back to being a kid. Even to me, you're still a kid. No
Yes, sir,
disrespect.
of course.
But go back to when you started.
Yeah, so
You
I
had a
was
push
11
mower,
years
right?
old. Yeah, I started with an electric push mower that I found on the side of the road.
Okay.
And my neighbor happened to have an electric weed whacker that she gave me. And my dad's always been a roofer, so we had extension cords laying around in the garage. And at that point, I just went and started knocking on doors. And,
Why? You know, what induced an 11-year-old to like want to
I was
work?
kind of just cutting my own yard, and it was one of those things that, my mom always told me if you want something, you got to work for it.
Right.
Well, in her head, she meant, go do the dishes and stuff, and, we'll give you an allowance. In my head, immediately, I was like, work, that's what I've seen my father do. Like I said, he's been a roofer for 30 plus years, so owning his own roofing company and stuff, that's what I had always seen growing up. So it was one of those things that going into it, I already had, that family background that was in the business and saw how my mother handled, being the secretary of the company and stuff like that. So it was a little bit more, something for me to do on my own at that point, other than working with my dad on the roof or something. It was something for me to have myself.
Did you ever work with him?
Of course, ever since I could walk and was wearing a diaper, I was on the roof. So,
Really?
yes, sir. I definitely realized it was not something I wanted to do, and here I am in the sun still out there baking like a clam. So.
Okay. And I'm going to guess, is one of the biggest things you do is like trim back those trees?
So my biggest thing is doing the proper cuts.
What's the proper cut?
There's a lot of different things that we've gone to school for over the years. Between trying to become ISA certified is one of the things I'm working on right now, taking classes, getting all the booklets down and stuff of that nature. It's just one of those things where we have to have a proper healing process for the tree. You don't want to have an overtaken, cut where now the tree isn't going to properly be able to heal, or, especially with oak trees and, our native trees here in Florida and stuff like that. On the Treasure Coast, a lot of people are looking for the hurricane cuts and stuff like
Right.
that out of the palm trees, and a lot of them don't know that that's not a proper cut. It's more of a preventative cut. So it's one of those things that, it's a lot of knowledge that I try to teach all of my customers and stuff like that at the end of the day. Teach them exactly what I was taught and, give them a little bit better of an aspect at the end of the day.
Okay, so obviously there are a bunch of different type of trees that you have to deal with.
Hmm.
Are they all handled differently?
Of course, just like a haircut. It's just
Okay.
like a haircut on a person. Everybody's got a little bit different of a head, and everybody's got to be shaped a little differently. And the trees I kind of take into the exact accountability with that.
All right, so I have this, I'll call it a tree. I don't know what the heck to call it on my property, and it's got these big leaves, and they constantly go up and then die, and they almost fall off. I have to pull
Hmm.
them or I snip them off,
Hmm.
and they just don't want to leave me alone.
So it's one of those things that, every plant's going to grow differently, and
Right.
some are meant to, like, for example, a Christmas tree palm, their palm tree fronds naturally fall off on them. Whereas a cabbage tree palm, we have to go up there and trim them off. So it's just like I said, different trees, different hair, everything's got a different type of way that it's going to be trimmed or need to be maintained in the future each time.
How high will you go to cut a tree?
So, for example, just over the weekend, we were 65 feet in the air removing a pine tree with an 8-foot drop zone.
So you were, I'm not, you weren't in a ladder.
Nope.
Okay, you were in a bucket.
Nope. No, so we don't bring any type of machinery onto the property that could damage the property unless necessary. So, for example, we used all roping and all spiking to get up the tree.
Oh wow.
We used multiple different ground guys on the ground with ropes to be able to bring down every individual piece at under 100 to 200 pounds a piece on each piece. That way we could make sure that we were in control the entire time of the branches. We want to make sure that we're able to guide everything away. We were in between two different power lines, a fence line, and a screen enclosure. You can actually take a look at the pictures on our Facebook page and see some before and afters and stuff like that, and get a little bit more of an idea of what we were working with and stuff like that. So
How many people were doing that job?
we had 3 guys in total, not including myself.
So, all right, so you take on this job.
Hmm.
So let's just say you contract a job on a Thursday and you're going to do it on Monday. Do you spend the rest of the days worrying about this job?
No, unfortunately, it's one of those things for me that I've never been scared of heights. I've done skydiving, all kinds of stuff.
Okay.
Heights have never definitely been a scare for me. But at the end of the day, it's all about safety. You got to take your time. Make sure that everything you're doing, check over your gear every time before you go up in the trees and stuff. Make sure your harnesses don't have frays and stuff like that. And communication with my ground guys is key. Being able to make sure that they're on the same page that I'm on, making sure that all of us work well together and stuff. It's not just about me being in that tree. Having my guys that I know exactly what they're doing on the ground, and then having their communication to make sure that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do in the tree as well makes everything go a lot smoother.
All right, so you did this big job. Who was in the tree?
I was in the tree the whole time.
By yourself?
Yes, sir.
So you did the cutting
Yes, sir.
and they did the directing of where the stuff would come down
Yes, sir.
so it didn't hit poles,
Power lines,
screens,
screens,
any of that.
exactly. All through ropes.
And I'm going to guess, and I don't know the industry per se, that we live where they're doing a ton of construction. A lot of homes have screen
Hmm.
enclosures.
So we're moving into an urban area, is what we call it in the tree industry.
Okay.
We have to urbanize our trees to allow them to be happier to the customer. So yes, we're trying to make the proper cuts at the end of the day, trying to make sure that we don't want to remove trees that aren't, disease, damaged, things like that. We always want to try to preserve, our trees, especially with all the new homes going up and things like that. So we always try to recommend all of our customers to save the tree rather than remove unless disease is involved or something like that. So it's just one of those things that, we have to try to take into accountability the happiness of the customer and the happiness of the tree, and make that an urban tree now versus just a forest tree at that point.
Interesting. And I was going to ask you the changes you've seen since you started, and you kind of brought up that now,
Mhm.
like urban trees. What about the future? What do you see in the future for your company?
So in the future, I'd like to expand to a point where, throughout Treasure Coast, we're going to be able to, help not just, the customers and stuff like that with knowledge and everything, but be able to help our employees also. One of those things that I want to make sure that all of my employees that work with my company are going to grow just as much as I am, just the way I was taught. I want to be able to pass that on to people in the future as well. Hopefully, at the end of the day, that'll teach people the better knowledge of proper trimming, and making sure that trees at the end of the day are taken care of the right way and not just for what a customer would like and to try to make a dollar at the end of the day.
Okay, so my philosophy has always been, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a little crazy. If you're an entrepreneur with a brick and mortar, you're even more crazy. And if you're an entrepreneur with a brick and mortar in the food industry, you're totally crazy. But like for you, you don't have a brick and mortar, correct?
No.
But you have cars or vehicles, and they have to have insurance, just like a brick and mortar would
Of
have to have.
course.
You have employees. You have to have insurance for them. Okay, so you have to have that. You pay, like I pay electric, you pay gas.
Chainsaw, bars,
Chainsaw,
of course.
Okay, and I'm going to guess that you can't use a chainsaw for 5,000 cuts. Okay, you have to maintain it.
Of course. And for example, if we use a chainsaw in this job that has a disease on it, I have to go through, thoroughly clean that chainsaw, replace the bar and chain, which means it can't be used on another tree because that could easily pass on to another tree in the future.
Really?
Of course.
Oh, see, I didn't
Of course.
know that.
Something just as simple as that is making sure that our equipment is clean before we go on to a job site every single time to ensure that our customer has the most satisfaction at the end of the day.
So when, I'll go back to Eric, is that his name?
Yes, sir.
So did you learn from him the equipment that you need to be efficient?
So that's going to come with more of a hands-on experience. Everybody's going to have their own preference
Right.
at the end of the day. It's kind of like a car. You know, there are so many different types of cars out there. It's all whatever fits you best, works best for you. I can say that at the end of the day, he definitely helped teach me how to work on the different equipments and stuff like that, how to maintain them properly, things of that nature, you know. You can always have a car, but it's always going to have the same motor in it. You know, at the end of the day, they're all still going to work the same, function
Right.
the same. So at that end of the day, it's just a preference of what kind of car you like and the proper maintenance behind it.
All right, so here's the thing. Excuse me. When you go to start a company, I think what makes a company successful, or what makes someone successful in a company, is the support that they get when they want to start. Like, I didn't have that support. So
Of
I told you, don't be stupid, get a real job, it's a pipe dream, which made it a little more difficult. Did you have support when you started?
My wife, 100%. If it wasn't for my wife backing me, and we've been married for about 2 years now, so just around the time that I was starting the company, we got married. We've been together for about 5 years now, so at the end of the day, you know, if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would have jumped back into owning my own company again. I think I would have been more content with working for another company and learning more versus trying to take the initiative myself and having the confidence in myself that the knowledge I have will allow me to go to the next step at that point. I would have felt I didn't have enough knowledge had it not been for her. And of course, I'm learning every day through
Of course.
books and stuff like that. But, you know, hands-on, there's only so many things that you're going to learn from certain companies versus doing it yourself.
Oh, without a doubt. I wasn't in this industry when I accidentally fell into it, so I get it. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that my wife, she was actually listening to my show. She lives in Indiana.
Of course.
And she was my support. She was my rock. She was one that believed in everything I was doing and pushed me to go do it. And I told you, I sold my car and drove a skateboard scooter.
Yeah.
But when she came down, she went out and bought me a regular scooter. I was stepping up in the world, okay? And I was older than you.
Yeah.
But that support really makes the difference. And the fact that your wife supported you is probably why you're here today.
Of course.
The other thing for me that I believe is very important to be successful is the give back. To be community oriented and give back. Because not everybody, no disrespect, I'm not counting anybody's money or anything, not everybody is in the position that you're in.
Most definitely.
And in today's economy, there are senior citizens that can't even buy their medicines.
100%.
Okay? And what happens is they live in a 55 or older community, let's just say, and the community then gives them a hard time because this tree needs to be taken care of or whatever, and they can't afford to eat.
They can barely afford to even get the fuel to go get the groceries nowadays.
Right. So for me, it was like giving back, and I thought how important it was. I didn't have the older people per se, but I had a bunch of new entrepreneurs that were in the position I was in that needed to give up something to keep their business going, but some wouldn't do that. And I thought it was incumbent on me to help out if I could. And I always swore that I ever became successful, I'd help others. And I'm blessed to have, I had 3 studios till my heart attack. I know how important it is and the feeling you get when you help somebody.
Of course.
All right. So, how do people find you? Because we're getting to the top of our time. So, you can find you on Facebook under
Of
what?
course. So we're on Facebook as America's Top Notch, just like the company name. We're on Google as America's Top Notch Tree Service. And then if you ever have to contact us, our phone number is 772-301-4864. We're available from basically 7 a.m. until about 7 p.m. So we try to keep a 12-hour window of, opening to calls, text, stuff like that. And then we try to, get an immediate estimate out to you, our customers. So one of our things is that, we try to have next day estimates where we
Oh.
don't have to put somebody off a week to wait for an estimate or something like that. We try to be there the very next day and get you on schedule as soon as possible at that point. We run a very tight 3-week schedule. I try not to exceed out of 3 weeks booking, basically. So if I have to bring on a couple extra guys for an extra hand and stuff like that, that way I can make sure jobs are getting done efficiently, time-wise, and stuff like that, just to keep a tight schedule and everything, then that's what we have to do on our end. So just to always make sure that the customers are the happiest, satisfied with time efficiency, quality, and pricing at the end of the day.
Everybody, it goes back to what I said in the beginning. Use a professional. First of all, for safety's sake, in his industry, you want to definitely use a professional. But if you don't, trust me when I tell you, it's going to cost you more money not to use a professional. And what he does is not, in my opinion, is not a DIY. Okay? Definitely not a DIY. And the frustration you'll get is just not worth it. It's just not worth the money because you could be doing what has value to you, meaning, let's just say you're an attorney and you charge $250 an hour. Well, maybe he charges $200 an hour, and I'm just picking numbers out of my head. But you could be making more money by using a professional than by doing it yourself. But sometimes it's more important to take that time on a Saturday or Sunday when you'd be off of work. Let's just say you get off of work let's say you work 5 days a week and you're off 2, to spend that time with your family. That has to be a value there too. Evan, thank you so much
Thank
for
you,
coming
sir.
on. Everybody, use a professional. We'll be right back.